I'm the itinerant voice actor Carl Bishop for Wise Brother Media, and today I'm talking to television legend Phil Donahue. How are you today, Phil?
I'm well. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Now, you have won 20 Emmys in your career, 29 years on the air with the Phil Donahue Show, and what I'm thinking now is that I miss, when I was a kid, I used to go home and watch your show on TV, and then, of course, Sally Jesse Raphael came along after that, and you kind of established a format. But what I wanted to start with was that you always seemed so reasonable and genuinely curious and not loaded with an agenda when you were addressing your guests and when you were addressing your audience. And it seems like that is sorely missed on TV right now or in any media format. And we need you back, Phil.
Well, thank you. That's very generous of you to say. And God knows I didn't, whatever good things you saw in my interviewing and in my show, in many ways were accidental. I really, somehow, we never had, there wasn't an award for interviewing as we came up through the ranks. So I'm not sure what did I do. I didn't sing. I wasn't a ventriloquist. And the best interviewer, nobody ever said that at an award show. So if that's the impression that I had on you, I thank you. I was curious. I certainly am not going to be too humble to say that. Mm-hmm. But it is also true that today there's a lot of programming, I'm afraid, and you have to entertain. Mm-hmm. So much of what we have on television is hee hee ha ha hoo hoo. If you watch the morning news programs, the people on the couch and the panels, it's a laugh, 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 and they make each other laugh. And somewhere along the lane, the computer said, find people who look like they like each other, and I think they've taken it over the goal line. Really, I mean, it almost looks studied now and not real, but easy to criticize, not easy to do. And you can't say, ain't it awful, 5 days a week. People just flat won't watch it.
Sure. Well, you certainly got people to watch an issue-oriented show. Your very first week on the air in Dayton, Ohio, on WLDL, you had Madeline Murray O'Hare, who was an atheist. And at the time, this is 1967, how did that go over?
Well, the building fell in Dayton, Ohio. I mean, here was this Notre Dame grad.
A Catholic.
First show, Madeline put her elbows on the table, leaned across toward me with her nose about 6 inches from my face, and she said, there is no God, there's no heaven, there's no hell. There are no angels. When you die, you go in the ground, you biodegrade, and you become part of the physical universe. Well, I mean, sponsors canceled. I got holy pictures from hundreds of holy pictures. And a lot of people in Dayton were praying for my soul. And it was the kind of thing that would last 5 minutes on a network. But we were in Dayton. We were a local show. We had nothing to lose. We had only one way to go, and that was up. The ratings went through the roof. I mean, nobody had ever seen anything like this on TV. So this was, our way of grabbing the attention of everybody knew after that one show that there was this new program on Channel 2 at 10:30 in the morning. We just kept building on that kind of controversy.
Now, how did you originally come up with the idea? Was it just you? Was it you and some producers? I mean, you must have thought, well, we're not going to be a game show. We're not going to have a band. Like, how did you come up with the idea? Or where did it come from? Where was the inspiration?
Well, first of all, I did a radio show in which people called in. It was, at the time, this would be late 60s, two-way radio became the in thing. You could call your radio station and you'd actually be on the air, and you could criticize City Hall and do, you finally had a voice that reached out to the whole area. I would drive home at night from my job at Channel 2 in Dayton, And driving home, I listened to WBZ in Boston. And the host's name was Bob Kennedy, not a relation. He was a Bostonian who hosted this show. And he was doing Marguerite Oswald, the mother of the assassin. And very, strange things at a time when everything was a game show or a soap opera.
Yeah.
At a time when you had to entertain. And he was doing this stuff, and I thought, whoa, where is this? And I was totally fascinated by this.
Yeah.
So when I got a radio show in Dayton on WHIO, I called the phone company, and I said, and they came, we had lunch, and I said, I want to be able to put a guest long distance on my show, and at the same time allow people to call in and talk to that guest. Yeah, now this was high tech in 1960.
Yeah.
So I came into the office a couple of days later, and I walked into the studio, and I had wires all over the top of the table, lights that flashed, and my instruction was to punch 2 lines at once, and I would be able to connect whoever had called and was screened, punch both buttons, and I would get the local caller in touch with people like Hugh Hefner,
Yeah.
founder of Playboy magazine.
Right. So by the time I walked into a radio station in 1989, this was common practice. So are you telling me that you were one of the first stations to have this technology?
I don't know. I mean, if I say yes, somebody from Duluth, Minnesota is going to say, "Oh no, you weren't."
I understand.
So, I didn't know that we were, so progressive in terms of technology as to be first. But it's possible. It's possible. I knew that I couldn't get a movie star to come to Dayton, Ohio, to be on a radio show.
That's true. Yeah.
So we wound up making that work, and the ratings went through the roof. And that's when the general manager from WLWD, hope I'm not confusing you, came to me. That's the competing television station in Dayton, and said, "Why don't you do this on TV?"
Ah.
And I said, "Well, what are we going to show while the caller's talking?" He said, "Don't worry about that." So I took my Rolodex, and off I go to the other station. I go on the air November 7th, 1967, featured Madeline Murray O'Hare.
Wow.
And that's, and kaboom, that's really took off.
Wow. That's fantastic. Well, everyone knows you're a Catholic, and you've been outspoken about about the church and how you feel could be better. Do you still go to church?
Well, alas, that's the kind of question I would ask. Well, I'm not comfortable saying no.
Mm-hmm.
Because, a lot of Catholics love me as a friend or a relative, and I don't want to disappoint them.
Mm-hmm.
But my faith has been an interesting and I think an important feature of my life.
Yeah.
It's caused me to ask more questions, to think about the church, and to realize, how slow it's been in coming to their own, to live what they preach.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we are all God's children. I believe that the church does a job that includes not somehow dodging all controversy, refusing to believe the controversy exists. The church is anti-sexual. Mary is a virgin because we couldn't tolerate, Mary in bed with a man. I'm not even asked to be born, and I'm born with original sin. The church teaches if I die before I'm baptized, I can't go to heaven. And then I think, well, if I'm not born with original sin, then from what am I being redeemed? If there's no original sin, then what do you do with Calvary?
Yeah.
So all these things are coming down on my head as I aged and got my way through life. annulment of marriage. I refused to get an annulment when I married Marlo Thomas.
Yeah.
You know, the annulment says to my children, this marriage never happened. You know, and 6 celibate males decide whether I get an annulment. And then if they do get an annulment, I have to pay a fee.
Yeah.
All of this, you know, the church begins to look very, very human.
Yeah.
And after a long while, you believe that it is. So I think I'm asking more questions now than I used to.
Yeah.
I have fewer answers, but I'm excited by the questions.
Yeah.
I just, you know, I do look up at the sky and the stars, and I think, wow, this can't be an accident. You know, my faith is, I have to say, probably agnostic. I'm not sure there is no God. I think people who are sure there is no God, or people are just as messianic as people who say they are sure that there is. And I think the only honest position is that I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't prove that God doesn't exist.
Right.
And I can't prove myself, you know, by science or any other means
Right.
that he does. Right. And that's where faith comes in. I was born Roman Catholic. I'm no longer practicing, yet I was an altar boy. And I loved it. I loved the pageantry of it. I loved the mystery of it. And I was thinking about moving out of the priesthood, but I never did it. I never closed the deal. And I think part of the reason was I realized that I'm a gay man. I've of course read the parts of the Bible that told me and heard the preachings that, you know, said I was, you know, what I was a sinner, and they will love me, but they'll hate my sin, which was my sexuality, and I couldn't square those things.
Very condescending.
Yeah, and it was
love the sinner, but not the sin. Well,
right, and it was very insulting, and I just turned away. I just couldn't do it, you know.
Well, you know what you have to feel for is the gay people who've not turned away, who've been. I mean, being in the closet must be awful.
Oh, it was incredibly destructive, and it leads to, in a lot of people, and myself, it was I acted out with anger and self-destructive behavior, and because I was trying to, you know, I was confused, and you know, you really can't deal with when you're a teenager and you're not emotionally mature. The fear, you know, this is in the 1980s, and it was still very uncool to be gay. And I'm really heartened that kids now can, I mean, we got young men and women who are realizing they're not the gender they were born with, and they're getting, you know, transition surgeries. It's amazing, and they're being a lot more welcomed in the world, and certainly being gay isn't, you know, it's still in some parts of the country is a big deal, but in not others. And it's hopeful to me, though, that the change has been incredibly fast.
One of the nicest things that happened to me as a result of my good fortune of having this TV show, people come up to me all the time in airports and other public places, and they say, thank you, Mr. Donahue, for your show. Because of your show, I came out to my parents.
Wow.
Women say, thank you, Mr. Donahue. Because of your show, I got out of an abusive marriage.
Wow.
So somewhere along the way, I became part of this wonderful, wonderful movement, and how fast it has matured. The gay rights movement is just exemplary for anybody who wants to start a revolution. Talk to a gay person, a politically active gay person. It's unbelievable. When I think in my own lifetime how scared I was in 1967 for putting a gay guy on, that people would think I was queer. And my show would be over, my career would be ended. And when I think, and now gay marriage, I mean, it's fabulous. It's so exciting to see what has transpired. And the shoulders that these young gay people stand on, the courage of the first gay guy I had on my show. I mean, I didn't really appreciate it at the time, but boy, I do now. Imagine in 1967. Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Yeah.
What is your question?
Wow.
Boy, oh boy, these talk about guts.
Yeah.
And that's risking job, future, not being able to choose freely the person you love, and all the parents who got smart, who suddenly realized that they had a son or a daughter, truck drivers with tattoos, and it don't make no difference what you are. People who were, the scales were falling off their eyes, and they were seeing what an abuse this was and how unnecessary it was, and how the church was promoting it. If the church does not respect gay people or think they're sinners, then it's easier for a homophobe to beat them up.
Yeah.
And I can't get over this. I think this is the church's mortal sin, what it has done to gay people. I see a wonderful ray of light. The crack in the door has been opened by Benedict.
You mean Francis, our current pope?
I'm sorry, Francis.
Yeah.
Who am I to judge?
Yeah,
that's a tremendously brave thing for him to say.
Yeah.
Especially when you realize the dogma that he is up against, the intractable nature of this preachment from the church, and it fascinates me. There's a Nobel Prize waiting for somebody, or at least a Pulitzer, who gives us this whole story. The biggest promoter, I think, of homophobia is the Catholic Church, which, by the way, has the largest closet of any institution in the world.
That's right.
And the hypocrisy, it hangs in the air, and it's starting to undermine the power of the church. The church is facing its biggest crisis in a long, long time. And how unfair this whole pedophilia thing is to gay people, because the church makes it look like gay people are pedophiles.
Yeah, that connection is always made, and it's
there. And wow, and gay people have AIDS. I mean, I went through all this during the AIDS thing. So many of my own friends died, and I thought, I got to do something. I can't just stand here. So I became a board member of Gay Men's Health Crisis here in Manhattan.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That was a real eye opener for me too, and I was able to MC their fundraisers and so on. So this political issue has become a pretty large part of my life, and I'm now active with a group called GALA, Gay and Lesbian Alumni, Notre Dame, St. Mary's. And once a year here at my place in New York, we have their membership here for a wine and cheese, and we had 80 people here last November. And I tell them, I said, I hope you know the shoulders you're standing on here. These are all out of the closet members of the alumni of Notre Dame and St. Mary's College across the street. We're getting somewhere, but boy, the church is hanging on, and I expect the Pope to really probably make some significant changes. If he's capable of saying that.
Yeah.
As an Argentine too, because I'm sure they don't lead the way either.
No, for sure not. And when you are in the airports and people say these things to you, is that after they say that they shower your wife Marla Thomas with love?
They do, yes. They knock me over to get to Marla.
Well, Phil, thank you so much for having a conversation with me today, and please do say hi to Marla for me.
I will, and thank you for the opportunity to chat here. As you probably already noticed, it's your fault for asking a talk show host to be on your program. We do talk too much.
Well, thank you for letting me get a word in edgewise. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. You're very kind.
Well, there you have it. Another edition of The Itinerant Voice Actor with me, Carl Bishop. My little podcast that no one listens to, but everyone should. Special thanks to Johnny and Robert at Wise Brother Media, celebrity booker Paul Adamo, my partner in crime, David Levin at Brainstorm Inc., and the super talented Noel Honig at the Drawing Room NYC. More episodes of The Itinerant Voice Actor coming soon. Thanks for listening.